One more chance for Watford to break. That's disrupted. And a scrappy game ends goalless.
And greetings and welcome, dear listener, dear viewer, wherever you might be, fellow Watford supporters. Thank you so very much indeed. Welcome to this brand new edition of the Orns Watford FC post-match with yours truly, Omar, here in San Francisco, California. You are listening live on X, or you are watching live on YouTube, or you might be doing both. It's great to have you aboard. Thank you very much indeed. Nice to have you back on YouTube on this Saturday afternoon after this really dreary performance, really a dreary result, a dreary game. Stoke 0, Watford 0. And look, the great thing is about this result that it's another clean sheet. 3 consecutive games now with clean sheets for us. You have to go back a long way in the Watford annals to see where the last time was that we had 3 consecutive games with clean sheets in them. I don't believe we've had that this entire season, and I don't think we had that all the last season. It might be a good few years before we can even go back to 3 in a row. I'm sure someone will research that, but it is good to be here with you. Thank you very much. The bad thing about this game is that Watford had more opportunities than Stoke and should have put 1 or 2 of those away, especially in that second half. Georgie had a glorious opportunity to put us in front. He did not. And there was another opportunity that we could have had to score, but we did not have the quality in the end. That last ball that could have really done it, the finishing touch that we needed, eluded us today. But I think the good news, and I will take your requests on X, or you can leave your comments on X if you will. Hit the request button there, or on YouTube. Be happy to read your comments out. I think the good thing, before I go to David on X, is that, look, I thought Doumbia was really aggressive and really up for it. I think that we had the right ideas going forward with Doumbia. Aggressive. I thought the defense was very well committed today. Abankwah was standout. I thought he was excellent today, Abankwah. And of course, Georgie did his thing. Look, the bottom line is that this team, look, when you can't get a win, make sure you don't get a defeat. And I would have loved us to take 3 points from a side that's struggling in the bottom 4 or 5. But Mark Robins is a good head coach. We know that of his Coventry days. Bottom line here, though, is that Watford get out of Dodge in a game that's unremarkable, and they move on. That's 2 unbeaten away, and maybe even 3 unbeaten away, actually. And that's, listen, 2 clean sheets in a row away from home and 3 overall. Can't complain about that. David, your comments are coming up shortly. Just want to read out one thing from YouTube right now. Brown Electron says, fair result. Absolutely agree, Brown, on YouTube. Thank you. But we go to David now on X. David, thank you very much for joining us here on Orns Watford FC post-match. And don't forget to unmute yourself, David. Your comments, please. Oh, David has left us, unfortunately. David, we hope that you can come back in. I don't know what it is with this technology. David has come back. David, what do you think of that performance today? And your reflections, please, on Stoke 0, Watford 0.
Hi, Omar.
Hello there, David.
Bit torn on today. I completely agree with your comments. I think it's very difficult to be critical of our players, particularly in the last few weeks. I think they give in absolutely everything. The flip side, I guess, is it felt like a real missed opportunity. With Stoke as our opposition today, I think they probably were there for the taking. But at the same time, as you say, another clean sheet, another point, particularly away from home where we struggled so much at the start of the season. Yeah, I am finding it quite difficult to be critical of our players for that reason. And as you said, I think Abankwah was outstanding. Some decent performances. I think we obviously look a lot different if perhaps Vata and Bar are involved from the start in this game. But yeah, we don't have that luxury. Don't think Tom Ince really did much after a good performance against Luton. But yeah, got to move on and just take the point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, David. That's the approach. And I think if most of us as Watford supporters look at it that way, I think we won't have too many complaints. Yeah, it does irk you a little bit that we had more of the chances. Stoke only had really one chance. That was very late on in the game when Celtic made that really good save. Celtic didn't have anything to do in this game except for that save. So maybe some people might reflect on that a bit. But overall, as you point out, David, in the grand scheme of things, you really can't be too disappointed about this. No complaints about the application for these lads. Doumbia, terrific. Loser did his thing in midfield. I thought he was solid. TDB was, I think, really good today. You can't complain about any of that. Georgie, I think, again, doing what he does. The defense stood up very well. And again, as I said earlier, and as you agree, Banquo was outstanding today. I thought he was terrific. Got his angles correct. His timing was right. His defensive know-how continues in the ascendancy. He's a wise defender. I think he's very sharp. And again, as I want to go back to Doumbia again and going up front, Doumbia was in for it. He was up for it, really up for it, man. I mean, this guy doesn't look like someone who you think is very physical and tough, but he is. And he's very smart about how he puts himself about. So, David, absolutely. I don't think there's anything that we can really be critical of in this game. David, anything else you want to say before we move on?
I think it was a little bit of a shame just how woeful Larouci was today. I think he just had an absolutely shocking day out. I mean, one thing with Larouci is he does really give it his all.
Yes.
And he certainly had some good games in recent weeks. I have seen online that we might have made it a permanent signing. Obviously, that remains to be seen, but not really too sure on that one. He's been up and down pretty much throughout this season. So I'm interested to sort of know what you think in terms of whether we should make that permanent, really, because the jury's still out for me.
I think Larouci is someone you should keep around, and I'll tell you why. I think that, yes, he huffs and puffs. I think he gets a lot right. I think his end product could be a little bit better. And I think his timing of his end product could be a little bit better as well. But I do think there's upside to Larouci. He's sturdy. He's strong. I think he's stout defensively. I think a lot of times in transition defense, he's very good. And I think he's quite pacey in that way. I'm not so sure that he's very pacey going forward, though. But the bottom line, I think, is this guy is a young lad. He's got a lot more to learn. Again, I think he is physical with the requirements of what the championship delivers, and I think if we by some chance head to the Premier League in the next season or 2 or 3, I think he would actually be the right fit for the Premier League. I actually think he'd probably be better for the Premier League in some ways, even though his skill set may not be quite on the level of a Prem. But I do think that that's someone who is very serviceable, David, and I think he could be very adaptable to either league or any league that he's in. Yes, there are some days where he is forgettable. I will differ from you in this game. I thought that certainly in the first half, I thought it was quite good. He was busy, he was active, just the end product that's the issue, which I think can manifest itself with some improvement, with some training and all the rest of it. I think that he is someone that I would invest in, actually. I don't think that that's a lost cause for me, but that's my view on it, David.
Yeah, I think he has some qualities, obviously, that, he has shown that he can put a really good cross in from time to time. And I think he really does have the luxury of following Jamal Lewis, to be honest. That's certainly a luxury that he has, because it was only up from there, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think I certainly wouldn't be looking to make a decision, though, if I was the club at this point. I'd be using the remaining games to really increase our sort of knowledge on what he can bring, because I think he certainly stuck to his task defensively quite well.
Yes.
In the last set of weeks, so it's not necessarily one that I'm swayed on, but it's certainly an interesting discussion, I think.
Certainly is, David. Thank you very much indeed for your comments, as always.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome, David. That was David there talking about Stoke versus Watford, and also about Larouci and whether or not the club should make him permanent. Some stories and rumors and things about that happening or not happening or could be happening. And I think he is a good investment. David thinks that the club should take a few more games i.e. the rest of this season, before making a decision on him. Now, speaking of the table and the rest of the season, there's 11 more games left in this championship. My God, this season, fellow Watford supporters, has gone by really fast, really fast. And I do invite you to add your comments in on X, or get on the horn, as David did a few moments ago there, and have your say. Let's all hear what you have to say about Stoke versus Watford, about parts of the game. I mean, certainly I think on YouTube, Brown Electrons has weighed in about that, says that there should have been a red card for that challenge on Larousse. Brown, I agree with you 110%. How wasn't that a red card? Brown says on YouTube. Brown Electrons, I agree with you. The referee was a dog's dinner today. Now, we had a very good referee last week, or earlier this week, at the top of the week on Sunday, against that lot up the road. I thought he was terrific, that ref. That referee might have been the best referee we had all season, which I don't know if that's saying very much, given the state of EFL referees and the like, and Premier League referees and all the rest of it. But Brown Electrons, I agree with you on YouTube. How wasn't that a red card? It was studs up on Larousse. How on earth is that? And referee's like three yards away. How has he not seen that? He's gone straight in on him. That is a straight red card. He should be off the pitch. That right. And by the way, that challenge really facilitated all the aggro that was going on afterwards in that first half. And they had to be separated a couple of times. And then I think in the second half, it happened again. I mean, look, the bottom line is that when a referee don't take charge of situations like that with a clear straight red card, then you invite the kind of stuff that happens, because of course a Watford player is going to have a go at a Stoke player for that. And Doumbia had a go at the same guy that did that to Larousse later on in the game. So, yeah, I mean, the referee, that's the one thing here. The referee should have done better with controlling the game and looking at what was going on the pitch. You know, every time a Stoke player went down in the second half, I mean, you want to chin and wag about something. You want to get upset about something. This is something I'm going to get upset about. You know, every time a Stoke player went down in the latter stages of that second half, every time, oh, stop the game. There wasn't even a head injury on a couple of them occasions. And twice the same player went down. Referee stops. Oh, we've got to stop the game. You only stop the game in them situations, i.e., one, if you're given a foul, and two, if there's a head injury. And this guy, the ref gave no foul. Oh, I'm gonna stop the game anyway. The guy went down. What is that? The referee's name is Tom Neild, I think. Tom Neild, what are you doing, mate, as a referee, if you can't control the game properly? This is the team, Stoke City. They're bottom 5, bottom 4, bottom whatever it is. You've got to do better in that situation. So, you know, that's the one thing I will shout about for about 2 seconds. It was really poor from the ref today. But again, in response to what Brown is saying, totally agree. Not even a card was given. Brown, you're absolutely right. The referee didn't even give him a card at all for that challenge on Larousse. You know, if there was VAR there, he would have been sent. Well, we hope he would have been sent off for that. Really, that was studs up on his ankles, on his shins. I don't know how on earth the referee, who's literally, I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. I've got no reason to make this up. He's literally about 3 yards away from him, and he doesn't wave anything for that. That's just unbelievable to me. But again, this is welcome to English football and welcome to your EFL referees. You know, we talk about this being the beautiful game and the Premier League being the greatest and the Championship being a really good old scrap and a really good league. And then you got referees who don't make it that way. The referee always wants to be part of the story. And if you're a good referee, you don't ever want to be part of the story. Last week's referee, Sunday's referee against that lot up the road, was not part of the story. He did his job. He was seen but not heard, and he basically did everything right in that game against that we won the other day. But this referee wanted to be part of the headlines, didn't he? He wanted people like myself to be talking about him. Well, I've said enough about him. But let me go on to what I was gonna say. The Brown Electron says they played the ref well today. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Brown, absolutely. Brown Electrons on YouTube, 100%. The referee got conned, or he was endearing himself, maybe felt a little bit of sympathy for a team in the bottom 4 or 5 in the division and said, well, you know, they are in the bottom 4 or 5. Let me make things up to them. They're in the bottom 6 now after the draw that they got. They had lost 2 in a row, Stoke, but let's look at us. We are in 10th now. We, I think, started the day in 9th or 10th. I forget, 9th. We're down to 10th now as a result. 14 wins, 7 draws, and 14 defeats. No goals against today, because, of course, it's still at -3 on the goal difference. I think you've got to look at this as a decent point, considering I know Stoke are in the bottom 6, and I know that we have struggles against teams in the bottom 6 in the table. Proved to be again today, although I think a performance was better than it had been against teams in the bottom 6 away from home. We didn't play well against Hull a couple of months ago, at least 2 months plus ago, and we got a point out of that game where we didn't perform well. In this game, we performed well enough. I thought that, again, the defense was really good from back to front. I thought the defending as a team was good. The defending individually was good. Defending as a block was good in the low block. Our defending in that 18-yard box and around the penalty box, I thought was very good. I thought that we were very well organized overall on the pitch. I don't think you can have any complaints about the way we approached this game. Watford looked much more lively, I think, than Stoke did. I mean, it was a forgettable game overall, but at least Watford were giving you signs of life. You weren't being lulled to sleep by Watford, although the game generally was a game that you could probably have set your alarm clock to, and it would have been a cure for all the insomniacs out there. But when Watford were on the ball going forward, there was promise. The way they cleared it, the way that they played through the lines, the way that they used the full width of the pitch a lot of the times, and also the way that I thought they made some really good spaces happen. They opened up spaces up and down the channels and through the middle of the pitch. Georgia did that very well. I think Ngakia did that very well at times as well. And there were 1 or 2 other players who opened up the channels of space very well throughout the pitch, left and right, and going all the way across. I thought that the way that they ran the game was very good today. So I know it's only a point, and I know it's the Stoke's in the bottom 6. But I think the trick is for us as Watford supporters is not to look at the position that Stoke are in the table. Look at the performance. Look at how we dealt with the Bet365, which is a difficult place to go to. Can you do it on a cold Saturday afternoon in Stoke? Well, they managed to get a point. So, look, we can't be too upset. We can't be upset with this. You've got to be pleased with the performance. Listen, the game wasn't great to watch, but at least Watford's application was good. Vata came on a bit too late. I think if I was only going to needle Cleves for one thing, it was bringing on Vata and Bio a little bit too late for me. I mean, I think Bio came on in the 70th minute or the whatever it was, and Vata came on a little bit later after that. I would have wished that they brought some of these players on a little bit earlier, Cleves. But look, I think Cleves got this game right. It was not going to be easy to go up to Stoke and get something, and they did. And people were expecting 3 points. I like what Cleverly advised the team to do in the week. Don't get too high off of the 2-0 Derby win. Come in and apply yourselves. And they did that. They did that against the Stoke side. You can see why Stoke are in the bottom 6. Against the Stoke side, really, they didn't offer very much going forward. There was a couple of moments there in the last 5, maybe 10 minutes where Stoke looked like they could do something. But listen, the only save of the game, when you really have to look at our goalkeeper and note that he only really had to make that one save, I think it tells you about Watford and how well I think they performed, given everything in really what was an otherwise forgettable game. Again, Watford in 10th on 35 games played. They've got 11 more of these to come. 14 wins, 7 draws, 14 defeats. And we are on 49 points. We're 3 unbeaten now in the championship. Those are our last 3 games, 2 wins and a draw. And all 3 of those games feature clean sheets, which I think is really good. We have not conceded a goal since the Leeds game, which was the 4-0 loss. And we've gone from there and not conceded in 3 straight games. Now, listen, again, as I said at the top of this, you have to go a long way to find out when we had 3 consecutive clean sheet games. I can't think of when it was off the top of my head, and I would love for someone, I could probably research it, but I'm sure someone could as well, who's listening or watching. When was the last time we had 3 consecutive games of clean sheets in them? I don't think it might have been during our promotion season back in 2021, when we had the 2020-2021 season. That might be the last time we probably had. You probably have to go back to them results. back in the 2020 to 2021 season during the COVID era, when Cisco was in charge. That might be the last time we probably had 3 consecutive clean sheet games. I mean, that's how good this has been lately. The lads have really reawakened. They have improved their performances. You can see the confidence in these lads. And I think that they'll be confident off this game as well, despite not getting 3 points. Sometimes that's the way it goes. You know, sometimes you can play decently enough, defend well, but not get the final ball going your way. That we really got very fortunate, or they got very fortunate this Stoke. A former player of ours, the ex-Watford man, Ben Wilmot, you might remember that in the second half, headed the ball backwards toward the goalkeeper, but it hit the post. The goalkeeper was well beaten. And, you know, if the post wasn't there, if the woodwork wasn't there, obviously it would have been a different story. We could have come away with something out of this game beyond just the 1 point that we got. So Ben Wilmot almost gave us a helping hand with that, what would have been an own goal in that second half. But the bottom line is, look, we are where we are. It's 10th place. We are 3 points off the playoffs. West Bromwich Albion are in 6th place on 52 points. Blackburn have fallen to 7th on 52. Middlesbrough, who got the win, I think it was today, they're back in it. You know, that's the thing about Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough won 2 games in a row now. They won against this very same lot that we drew against today at the Bet365 during the week. And so that 3-1 Middlesbrough win at Stoke during the middle of the week has helped them. And then they got the win today as well. And there you go. They're back above us in 8th on 50 points. Bristol City, who have yet to play their game, they're on 49. They're in 9th. Watford are in 10th. That's where we are now as far as that is concerned. On YouTube, you've got a load of comments that we're going to read out now. For those of you on X, I'm going to say goodbye to you now. It's been a pleasure and really great to have you aboard on this edition of the Orns Watford FC post-match. Watford go to the Bet365 of a 0-0 draw as the final score. We take on Millwall next. That's the next game for us. Watford versus Millwall, looking to do the double over the Den Lions, the Lions of the Den, who will be coming up to us at the Vic coming up next weekend. That one is our next match. But I do want to say goodbye to those of you on X. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to look now to see if there are any comments that have been made off the back of the comment that was made earlier by David, but nothing has come up yet in the written comments on X. So what I'm going to do now is say goodbye. Thank you so very much indeed for those of you who have listened or who have contributed on X. We're going to continue now for a few more minutes on YouTube, and then we'll also go later on to Instagram as well. Thank you very much for those of you on X. I'll be reading out your comments shortly on YouTube. Take care. And until next weekend against Millwall, have a good afternoon and take care of yourselves on X. Be well and see you next week. So, dear listener and dear viewer, hello again on YouTube. Thank you so very much indeed for joining. My name is Omar. We are continuing on here on YouTube. It's great to have you aboard. Thank you so very much indeed. You are watching Orns Watford FC post-match, and we will be heading shortly off to Instagram land as well. It's great to have you aboard. I'm going to read out your comments. It's great to have you here. Despite the game not being much to write home about, you can at least say that Watford applied themselves in a game like this. We've seen so often where Watford have performed in an away game, in a game that's just so poor. And really, they've also played as poorly as the game. And Watford today, in a game that I thought was just very, just a non-factor. It was not a game that you're going to be thinking about another half hour or 5 minutes from now. But it's important in games like these where it's just a really dreary affair that you still perform well. And I thought that Watford's character and mentality today was very good. And if you, as an away side, can perform decently enough in a game that is so dreary and bogged down, that to me is a test of your character. It's a test of your mentality, and it's a test of your smarts too. as a team. Stoke tried to get us into the physicality, the argy-bargy. We handled that for the most part really well. The referee was awful, as I've said, and as David has said, and also as Brown Electrons has said as well. And Matt said this too. I'm going to read out what Matt has to say and all of your comments as well on YouTube. But that's the bottom line. You've got to be able, in an environment like that, a Stoke City side that's desperate. You know, this Stoke had just lost 2 or 3 days ago at the Bet365. They just lost. So they wanted to come out here and redeem themselves after losing midweek against Middlesbrough at home. And they wanted to show something. So they were physical at times. They didn't really have much going forward. So what they do, they mucked up the game, which is really interesting because that's normally what the away side does. Mucks up the game, makes it uncomfortable, you know, slows the pace of the game down. Stoke was the home team here, and they played like the away team today. And they messed the game up, mucked it up, went down over any little thing. The referee was totally conned. I agree with what Brown Electron said earlier. The referee was completely conned, and the referee was terrible. And so when you got that combination, that kind of synergy going on, it's not going to be a good look for the game. And hence, voila, Exhibit A, the game stunk. And so Watford dealt with that well. And Watford, as a relatively young side, I thought, showed a lot of maturity in them situations today that we saw against the Stoke side that really was waffling and flapping about. We did put in more chances on their goal than they did on ours. If you look at the stats, before I read out your comments, fellow Watford supporters, and before I go to Instagram as well, if you look at the stats for this Watford match against Stoke today, what you will see, which is rather interesting in my mind, is that this is the result of the possession. 63.2% possession for Watford, 36.8% for Stoke. So Watford had all that possession, didn't do a whole lot with it, but at least Watford showed you that they were able to get up the pitch against the Stoke side, control, I think, much of the midfield. I thought they did well with, and also their defending and the way they possessed, they held the ball in defense out of, in their final third, I thought was very good. And I thought also the decisions made in every phase of play were good, except for maybe the final ball and the end product. You know, Georgie had that lung-busting run, took a shot, and the ball went just wide. You know, it went about maybe 10 feet wide, 10, I don't know exactly, maybe 5 feet wide. There were a lot of shots that hit the side netting. Doumbia had one that hit the side netting. So in that way, I've always believed that possession is 9/10 of the law, right? The other 10th is actually that final ball scoring, that final result, that final touch, that final finish. And so that's so critical. But what I like today with Watford, even though they didn't have that final end product, that finish, is that they had a go, they took shots, they kept that goalkeeper busy, they had the defense scrambling. Wilmot, like I said earlier, almost put the ball in his back of his own net. The former Watford man. So that's what I'm pleased at. Even though we had 63% of the possession didn't score, it's that we kept busy. One of the things I've always said is if you can't score in these games, just keep taking shots, keep having a go, keep going, keep putting them under pressure. Give that defense something to think about. Give that goalkeeper something to think about. How many times have you heard me on here or on X or on Instagram talk about the need to have these players feel us, have these opponents feel us, make sure that we keep them busy, make sure that we have them earn their paychecks, make them defend, move them about the pitch. And Watford I thought did that well. So let me give you some other stats. 8 shots for Stoke, 7 for us, 2 shots on target for Stoke, 1 on target for us. They had 19 total touches in the box. We had 10 total touches inside the box. Servic with 2 saves, the other goalkeeper with 1. It's interesting. That's interesting because I thought he had to make more than 1 save. Servic had to make more, made 2. I'm surprised at that. I thought he only had that 1 save to make. He had 2 to make. And maybe we should have troubled that goalkeeper even more because apparently, according to stats here from the BBC, he only made 1 save had only 1 save to make. We had 5 corners and they had 4, 15 fouls for them, 12 for us. So those are really where we go as far as that is. I'm going to read out your comments now. I'm also going to go to Instagram land. So let me just get that going before I get going here and read out all your comments on YouTube. Thank you very much indeed for being with us here on YouTube. We're going to join now with those of you who will join us on Instagram Live. So let me just set this up here for just a moment, and let's see if we can get the likes of those from Instagram land to come in. 3 and 2 and 1. Welcome aboard to this brand new edition of Orns Extra on Instagram Live. We're also live on YouTube. My name is Omar, and it is a pleasure to have you aboard. We are joining here after Stoke City 0, Watford 0. Not the best game in the world to watch. However, Watford, I think, performed pretty well. I think the team played well, did what they had to do, and it's great to see you aboard here on Instagram. What we're going to do now is read out those comments live to you all from those on YouTube, on the YouTube channel at Orns WFC. Please subscribe to that channel. We're going to go first to Philip Crouch. Philip, hello to you on YouTube. Thank you very much indeed for commenting and for being here. Thought Kayembe was non-existent, says Philip, and needed to be substituted. Would have liked to have seen Andrews brought on earlier as well. Yeah, and Philip wrote those comments a little while ago, so I'm sorry that I've neglected the comments on YouTube. I'm going to read all of those out now, but Philip is absolutely right. Philip, I agree with you 100%. As I did say as well, and you wrote this probably before I said it, they should have brought Cleves. My one issue in this whole game is that Cleves did not bring those players on earlier. The game was stale. It was a standstill game. It was a stalemate game. And what you really want to do when you see an hour of that kind of game, you want to freshen up that tempo, freshen up the rhythm of the game, and force that game to go a different way in terms of the kind of energy you're given to the play and given to the tonal shifts of the game. And I think an Andrews being on earlier could have affected that more. Even though I've criticized him for not trying to take his man on when he has a clear break opportunity to do so, that coming on earlier, I think would have been more useful as well. And bringing on Bio earlier, I mean, although he was on around the 70 some odd minute or so, I forget what minute it was he came on. It might have been the 70th minute. I guess that's okay. I mean, I can't, because Doumbia was doing very well today, but totally need to have those players come on a little bit earlier. That should have come on a bit earlier. Andrews came on the 86th minute. So Philip, I agree with you, Philip Crouch on YouTube, that Cleves needed to bring them on earlier, especially a game like this. And you just have to read what the game is. And, I'm a big fan of the New York Knicks in the NBA. And one of the things that the head coach often says about his Knicks players, who, by the way, the Knicks won a really great game last night, tight game last night by a point against Memphis. One of the things that he says often is you have to read what the game tells you, right? I'm paraphrasing him. You have to read what the game is telling you. And for me, Tom Cleverley's day needed to read what the game was telling him. I'm sure he did, but I'm talking about in terms of substitutions and changing and swapping out players. The game had to have been telling Cleves for the better part of over an hour that it needed to be shaken up a bit. It's not that Watford performed poorly. They didn't. I thought they performed adequately and decently and quite well. Considering everything. Difficult place to play. A team that wanted to prove something after losing at home just like 3 days ago. Tricky spot. Watford handled it well, but the game was terrible to watch. And I think at that point, you have to decide as a head coach, what can I do here to affect the balance of this game? And I don't think Cleves read what the game was telling him in that specific regard alone. It's not even a nitpick with Cleves. Cleves done a really good job this season. He's going to make it through the end of the season, as I had predicted before the season began, even though we got a little bit nervy there about a month ago. But the bottom line is that he's going to make it through this season. He will begin next season. I shouldn't say I'd be stunned, Gino better not ever dare to do something in the off season while we're all on holiday in Corfu or wherever we're going, and do something while we're all, going out there on the beach in the Bahamas and having some fun, or going to the Maldives Islands. He better not pull any nonsense, because that's when he'll do it. When you're out there trying to get yourself in the sun and have a good time, sunning and funning, and there's Gino, and then you get a message on your phone saying, "What?" Get a message on your watch going, "What? Gino did what? He sacked Tom Cleverley?" Well, we better not be having any of that around here. But anyway, the bottom line is that's the way I think about this. The subs, Philip, needed to be brought on earlier. I totally agree. Here's what Matt had to say on YouTube. "Hey, Omar," says Matt. "Thank you, Matt, for your comments. Great to see you. Great to have you aboard, as always." Matt says this: "Hey, Omar, how was there not a red card as well when that argument happened after that tackle in the first half? I'm sure I saw a hand raised by a Stoke player that the ref missed." Yeah, Matt, that was another thing. Referee, and I mentioned this earlier, the referee did a really crap job in this game. There was definitely I thought there was a hand as well. There was not a headbutt but there was one very close to that. And Matty Pollock stood there, and the other guy, Al Mohammadi, I think it was, made a motion with his head. He kind of made a motion with it, but he didn't make contact. If Matty Pollock had kind of leant down, or if this guy could have got sent off. But he stopped short of headbutting Matty Pollock. And I don't remember the referee even warning Al Mohammadi on that. I don't think he did. Al Hamadi, I don't think he even walked up to Al Hamadi and said, "Right, one more of them, you're off." Or, "Right, you better not." He didn't card him. Nothing happened. I don't remember that ever happening. And yeah, they had some aggro going on the pitch. And Tom Cleverley, if you remember this, I don't know if you remember this, Matt, was having to go at the ref at halftime. He was on the pitch pointing at something. He was jabbing his finger toward the ref. And then you had Mark Robbins, the Stoke City head coach, having to go with the ref, having to wood of the ref. So the referee was terrible today. Tom Neild was awful. And we had probably the best referee of the season on Sunday when we beat that lot up the road. I thought he was flawless, that ref. This ref today was the opposite. He was a disaster. The linesman was also terrible at times. There was a clear instance of no foul on a Stoke player, no foul. And then the referee gives no foul. And then the linesman says, "Oh no, the Stoke player was fouled." There was no foul. It was just ridiculous. But it was just ridiculous. I really thought the referee, Matt, did a poor job. The argument that you point to, Loser was in the middle of it. Jeremy Ngakia was really hot under the collar around that. It was just really poor. The referee lost control of the game because the referee didn't put his foot down when he should have done. And that is the reason why. You saw a really poor refereeing performance. The referee was worse than the game. And the game wasn't great to watch. And the referee was awful. I thought Tom Neild's one of the poorest referees we've had this season, which may not be saying a lot as far as the EFL is concerned. I don't know why we're not getting anything going on Instagram. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with Instagram today. So I might have to shut Instagram down at this point. For some strange reason, nothing at all, nothing. And that's normally not the case as far as Instagram goes. You normally get people coming on and commenting, but I don't know what's going on. If it's Mark Zuckerberg who's messing around with the gears, or if it's just some kind of issue going on. I don't know. Maybe people don't want to come on Instagram X Euros Extra, but that's all right. That's all right. No problem. I'll keep talking whether people are here or not. Trust me on that. But it's just great to have you here on YouTube. That I do very much appreciate each and every one of you who have commented and who are watching either now in real time or later on as well. So thank you, Matt, for your comment. I definitely agree. The Stoke player, I just don't know what these refs are up to. What are the refs up to? Honestly, I just really don't know in this league. In the Premier League as well, they're not great either. But some of these championship refs leave a lot to be desired. Brown Electron says, "I hope Cleverley complains about that challenge. The players are rightfully furious." Yeah, This follows on from what's been said. And again, these comments I'm reading have been put here probably about a good 10 minutes plus ago before I got to them. But the bottom line is, Brown, I agree with you. This is just ridiculous. I think there should be some complaint. I think that you can probably file a complaint with the FA or the PGMOL, pardon me. Something should be done around this. The EFL need to hear about this. Absolutely. Because they do have a referee's report. And I think they do review the referee and they do review the linesman. They do review incidents after the match. That's called the post-match report. I think the referee does one of them. But I also think some of the other officials, maybe the fourth official or maybe another official, does a post-match report as well. And I think it's not only what's happening on the pitch as they saw it, but I think they may watch the game afterwards as well and do that report. I'm not 100% sure on that second portion, but they do write a post-match report, and I think the referee definitely does. But the referee is not going to have any, listen, the referee is not going to be independent about this game. There were questions. Listen, I mean, look, we got a point, and I don't think we deserved more than a point from this game, frankly, today. We just didn't do enough to get the win, but we did enough to get a point, put it that way. But to the point that you're making there, Brown, problem with that ref. And I think that cleverly, I don't know if he's going to make a dog's dinner out of it or not, if he's going to make it a federal case out of it. But I think Watford should be looking at that ref and saying, hang on, we need to just talk to the EFL about this. We need to go to the PGMOL about this because this isn't right. That referee missed a lot of stuff. He let a lot of stuff go, some of which was good that he let go of, but some of the stuff he let go was ridiculous. And then he stopped the game when he didn't have to. Like I said earlier, when you had the Stoke player down twice, no head injury, the ref didn't call a foul. So what are you stopping the game for? What is it? What's the man doing? Absolutely bananas refereeing. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you want to get ticked off about something, it's not Watford getting a point at bottom six Stoke. The thing to get ticked off at, if you want to, is the shambolic refereeing today. That referee was awful. He was a disgrace, that ref. So listen, Brown, I'm with you 100%. Man of the match for me, says Brown, was a banquet. This lad has been immense. Also carries the ball well. That is going to be, and I've not even read all your comments yet, but that is the Orns Watford FC post-match fan comment of the game from Brown Electrons, who says this: man of the match for me was a banquet. This lad has been immense. Also carries the ball well. He certainly does. Brown, I mean, I didn't even really talk about a banquet that much. I mean, I mentioned him earlier. I said he was very good, but you're absolutely right. Man of the match, 100% was James Abankwah. As I said earlier, he got his timing defensively correct. He made the challenge count. He was really good with the way he utilized his spaces defensively. He was wise about what he did with the ball after he made the defensive play. And he also, like you said, one point that I didn't mention is the one you did mention, Brown, is that he absolutely carries the ball really well. And for a defender to carry the ball really well like that, coming out of defensive transition and heading up the pitch, is very good because he can do some of the things that Georgia can do. If you played Abankwah further up the pitch, I think he'd be really, really good. I mean, he's really good now where he is. But if you played him either as a wing back or played him further up the pitch, I mean, Abankwah could do some real damage because he carries the ball well, like you pointed out there, Brown. That's why I'd put him further up. I mean, I won't experiment with that now in these final, maybe the final couple of games you might try it. But Abankwah, if you put him further up the pitch, he can be a real threat, a real danger. He could be really, really good for us in some of them areas. And like you said, Brown, Abankwah was terrific today. He was excellent today. And I think he showed you some real leadership too. Pollock was good, but Abankwah was great. He was great today. And I totally agree. That's also my call for man of the match. James Abankwah, the Orns Watford FC man of the match. That's correct. James Abankwah, who's played, 10 games for us? Barely 10, 11, 12 games, whatever it is. 10 games, maybe less, maybe more. And has shown himself to be an incredibly good defender. really wise in his defense. And it's not just that he defends well, it's the wisdom that he brings to defense and his aggressiveness to it. Yes, sometimes some of us have been a little bit nervous about how aggressive he is, but I don't really have that much of a complaint about it because, again, that's old school English football defending. Remember back in the days, I don't know how old people are, but I'm old enough to remember way back when, you're talking about the 70s and 80s and even into the early 90s when defending, where it would be full blood and guts defending and the referee wouldn't blow the whistle at all. We're in a different time now. If you're under the age of 30 or 40, perhaps under the age of 35, you don't remember the days when it was real blood and guts defending in English football, and you had players coming to real gore tackles, like real smash tackles, and the ref wouldn't give a card out, and that was a long time ago. That don't happen anymore in English football at all. I can tell you that. Anyway, thank you, Matt, for the comment. And thank you, Brown, for your comments, as I was just mentioning James Banquet. Brown has this to say: we've got a real player here in a Banquet. I hope he signs permanently. Yeah, I do too. And there's some conversation you heard earlier on X. David talked about Larousse and the story or rumors that he's being signed permanently, or they want to do that, or whatever it might be. And I said Larousse would be a good investment. I think as a wing back, I think he is a stout defender. I think he defends his position well. I think he's good in transition defense. He doesn't necessarily have the pace going forward when he's bringing the ball up on the wing, but he has some good end product at times, but it's inconsistent. But he's a really good defender. And at the same token, James Abankwah in that centre half pairing, I think is terrific. Abankwah is really, really good. Now, I know Abankwah can go centre half. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. He's a proper defender. I mean, James Abankwah is really good. And this guy's, 21, 19, 20, 21? That lad can defend, and he's wise. And he is a real player. He's a real player. We got a real player in our midst. And this owner, who hasn't done a lot right lately over the last 5 years or so, he would be really well advised to make sure that Abankwah gets a contract. You're giving Daniel Backman 6 seasons or whatever the blooming contract was, 5 seasons, 5 years. You give Georgie, who's deserving of it, 4 or 5 years. You give Kwadwo Bar 4 or 5 years, whatever that contract was. Right? No problem with Bar getting the contract. No problem with Georgie, although I don't think Georgie's going to even stay. But no problem with them two getting the contract. Backman, of course, we know that's legendary, what many of us think about that contract. But if you're going to give Backman a contract, you have to give Abankwah a contract, mate. That's all there is to it. There's no other way around it. You have to give James Abankwah a contract. Now, of course, the money is always an issue at Watford, has been for a long time. And we will see if indeed James Abankwah gets something of a deal, because he deserves one. He absolutely does. He has been terrific. And he justifies a contract here. I know I think he's on loan and whatever, but they need to do a deal. I think he's from Udinese. He came from Udinese. They need to do a deal. I think he's also played he's from the Republic of Ireland originally. Excuse me. And he's played on he's played a number of times for the Republic of Ireland. I think it makes sense to have him here. And I agree, Brown Electrons. He should be signed permanently. Really good, proper player. You can build around him. Youngster. We need youth. We've got a lineup that's got a lot of youth in it now, which is really good. And mostly under the age of 26, a load of these players, except for maybe 2. I think Losers 26, 27. Sissoko obviously is, I think, 34, 35. Ogbona's 35, who I don't know. I don't think he was on the team sheet today. I think he's injured or whatever's happened with him. And then there's maybe one other player like Tom Ince, who's in his 30s as well, that I can think of. And maybe Sierralta might be over 26, but other than that, pretty much everybody is 26 or under. That's a young side you got there. Daniel Backman, I'm not counting him because, of course, he's not playing presently. And I think Selvik is probably 25, Maybe. But the bottom line is that, look, this is what's going on. We've got to look at the future. Yes, the present's important, but the future you've got to build for. And yes, a banquet would be a wise investment for the owner of this club, who I hope at some point says, I've had enough of owning Watford. Let me move on. That would be a really good thing for the town of Watford, not just the Watford fan base. Anyway, I had to get that in, didn't I? I don't know what's going on Instagram, so I'm going to turn Instagram off. Fair enough. And let's just have a few more minutes of you and I on YouTube. Nobody's in here. I don't know what's going on with that. So for those of you on Instagram who didn't watch, maybe you'll watch the replay of this if it's even being recorded. Anyhow, thank you very much for those of you on Instagram who watched this. We're going to continue with YouTube right now. So thank you all. We'll do this for another 5 or 10 minutes. And let's go with that. How about that? So it's you and I on YouTube. Thank you very much indeed for your comments and for watching as well. Matt says, Omar, the last time Watford had 3 consecutive clean sheets was April to May 2021. Thanks for researching that, Matt. I thought so, because I did say that you probably have to go back to the season probably when we were promoted in that 2020 to 2021 season in the COVID era. I said that earlier on. Right it was, and so it was, absolutely. So Matt, thank you for researching that and bringing that to our attention the last time. And Matt's researched this, so I trust his judgment here. That we had 3 consecutive clean sheets was April to May of 2021. That indeed was the season, was the year 2021 that we got promoted. Because you remember, we beat Millwall 1-0. That was the Ismail Assar penalty in the 11th minute. I still remember that like that was 2 minutes ago. And then, of course, we then beat, I think it was either Stoke City or was it Swansea? It might have been Swansea 2-0. It was Swansea that we beat 2-0. I think the following week, maybe, but it was sometime in that, I don't know, maybe that was not it, because we lost to Brentford as well. I think we lost to Brentford 2-0 in between those 2 games. I think that's right. Excuse me. I seem to remember that Brentford was the game we played after the Millwall game. We'd already been promoted at Brentford the week before against the Millwall, and we went to Brentford and we lost 2-0 there. I remember that. I think that's the game that Joseph Hungbo was in. I think he got injured in that game. Remember Joe Hungbo? I think he's now gone to wherever he's gone to. He's left Watford. I thought he was a good player. And then the next week we beat Swansea, and it was a very dreary afternoon at the Vic, I seem to remember. That was the last game of the season in 2021 that we were in the championship before we got promoted, and we won 2-0. Remember that same year, Matt, and to everyone watching, that was the same year that Watford had that stellar defensive record, and they tied the Football League record, or maybe their own record, for the fewest goals conceded in an entire season, which I think was 28, if I'm right in saying. But yeah, I remember all that like it was 2 minutes ago. But Matt, thank you so much for that information. I figured it probably was going to be during that time that we got promoted, because we did have a very, very strong season that season, defensively particularly. So thanks for that, Matt. Ryan says this: Hi, Omar. I hope you are well. Ryan, I am. Thank you very much for asking. I am well. Feeling good. The weather here in town, it's a bit foggy, but that's San Francisco. A little fog in the mornings, and then things clear up. Usually later on in the day, sometimes not till late in the day. But the bottom line is, yes, I am well, and thank you, Ryan, for asking. Really good to see you here. I hope you're well, and I hope you're doing well as well. Matt, thank you for your comment. As I said earlier, sorry, I just saw your comment again. I thought you made another comment, but thank you, Matt, for that. And Ryan, thank you for asking about if I'm well, and I certainly am, and I hope you are as well. Ryan continues on, and he says this: the ref seemed like he would rather be in KFC to have his dinner. Says Matt. That says Ryan, laughing there, as he clearly was not up to being a ref. Yeah. I certainly agree with you, Ryan. Tom Neild, Nield is his last name. Tom Neild was really poor today. I thought I've never seen him ref a game before, although the commentators on Sky mentioned that he was the same ref who refed the previous Watford versus Stoke encounter this season at the Vic in the reverse fixture at Vicarage Road. Interesting. I didn't notice him in that game. So obviously he did a whole lot better job in that game. We won the game 3-0. Then in this game, we drew the game 0-0. So, we didn't concede a goal against Stoke in either game. And yet the same referee who was obviously good in the game that we won way back in August was terrible today. In March, we begin the month of March with a really crappy referee. So, at least we begin the month of March with a clean sheet. That's important as well. But that referee thing, Ryan, it does irk me a bit because I'm not disappointed with the fact that we only got a point out the game, because Watford, I thought, did the best they could given everything and the circumstances of the game. We'd already come off of beating that lot up the road just 5 days before. So the circumstances, and then Bet365 is not an easy place to come to. And Stoke also lost just 3 days ago or so, 3-4 days ago. So tricky situation. I thought we handled all that well. Plus it was a really poor game to watch. And so given all of those ingredients, I thought we did well. So I'm not disappointed that we only got a point, because I don't think Watford deserved to win the game. But your point, Ryan, I agree with 110%. This referee looked like he would rather have been on holiday, on a Buttman's cruise or something, seriously. Or like you said, at KFC. I think he would have been much more content with that, because he just didn't seem like he was refereeing the game properly, even intelligently. I mean, he was a poor ref, but he wasn't thinking either. He was just so poor. I mean, how do you... Again, I'm going to repeat this. Sorry to repeat this. But how, when a Stoke player just goes down, you didn't call any foul, there's no head injury, how are you stopping the game? I just don't understand that. And he did it at least twice. At least. And I'm sitting here looking, what? Like, what is he doing? What is he doing? And then the Stoke fans were booing as well when they were booing something with a Watford player. Forget what the situation was, but they gave sarcastic applause when the referee gave a free kick to Stoke for whatever reason it was. So when you got both sets of fan bases upset at you as a ref, it ain't necessarily because you're doing something right. It's because you're really screwing the game up when it comes to football. You're screwing the game up. And when you got both head coaches having a go at you at halftime, Tom Cleverley was really upset with him. And I'm sure it was about the challenge that he did not red card for on Larousse. That right back from, forget his name now, the right back for Stoke, who just went in on Larousse like he was having a steak on his ankles. I mean, my God. I mean, it was studs up on his ankles. I mean, he was absolutely nibbling at it. I mean, it was terrible. It wasn't a nibble. And Tom Cleverley really he read the riot act to Tom Neal, the other Tom, right? He read the riot act to him, because that was despicable refereeing. You didn't give him anything. You didn't give him a yellow card for that challenge. And that should have been if that's Premier League, he's off. He is off. And I just think that, Ryan, I just think that the referee had a terrible game, was poor referee. Maybe he was from Stoke. I don't know. It was just a really poor job. And I agree. He would rather have been having a dinner at KFC, maybe a Happy Meal or whatever the heck they do, because I don't even go to KFC. But what is it? Happy Meals, or is that McDonald's? I don't go to any of these fast food places, so I couldn't tell you. But whatever it is, he probably could have had a 10-piece meal or what. He was. I tell you what, Ryan, he was refereeing as if he had just had some KFC. I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, he was really poor. Anyway, one of the poorest referees this season, which may not be saying a whole lot when it comes to the EFL referees. But Ryan, thank you for your comment there. Cleverly, says Ryan, needs a new contract, I actually think. I think he does. I don't think that's a bad shout. Now, his original contract, Ryan, was a year and a half, which would take him through to the end of this season. Now, look, I said before this season began that, in one of the podcast episodes I did, that Tom Cleverley would be at this club and he'd make it through the entire season. Now, there was a moment where it got wobbly. As I said earlier, a month or two ago, we were all here wondering if Cleverley was going to stay. He has stayed. He's going to stay. I don't think Watford are making the playoffs, having said all of that, but I don't think Tom Cleverley's job is conditional upon making the playoffs. What I've always stressed, and this is not just to Ryan, but to everyone watching, obviously, I've always stressed that continuity is so important at a football club. And where our club is concerned, this club over here, not Adidas, but this club, where our club here is concerned, continuity is everything for this Watford men's first team. And so if we can have continuity at our club in other areas, looking out for the community, doing great things in the communities in Watford and beyond, if we can have great continuity there and in other areas, where we are giving no hikes to season ticket prices, we're keeping the season ticket prices where they are, we need to have continuity with our manager. You need to have this man manage this club and let him manage this team the way he's doing it, because you see the camaraderie between the players and this head coach. You see the camaraderie between the players and the fans. You see the camaraderie between the fans and the head coach. For heaven's sakes, if Gino were to rip this up in the offseason, I'd be very upset. And I know that you would be too. We all would be very upset with that. You can't do that to this club. I mean, an owner can do what the heck he pleases, right? He or she pleases. But this fan base I think will erupt. Not violently, obviously, because I don't condone or endorse violence. I'm talking about vociferously with our pocketbooks, with our money, and with some protests, possibly peaceful ones. And we should be doing them kind of things, because we shouldn't be taking our foot off the gas when it comes to putting pressure on this owner to do the right thing. Now, a lot of us want him gone. A lot of us do. I happen to be one of those people who wants him out the club. I do not want Gino around the club anymore. He had a good first, 5 or 6 years, but since 2020, and yes, we did have the promotion in 2021, but he has been abysmal for this club. He's been abysmal, really poor, and hasn't backed the managers, and certainly hasn't backed this manager. And he needs to back this manager. If he can't back him in the transfer market, he needs to back him in the contract market and give him a blooming contract. That is what I have to say about that, where it comes to the owner and Tom Cleverley. Thank you, Ryan, for your comment about that, because I agree. Tom Cleverley needs a long-term deal here. Give him 3 years, whatever it is. Give him another 3 years. It was 1.5 years. Double that to 3 years. Make it 5 years. You give him Backman 5 years, right? I mean, the man. Anyway, I don't want to have a go at Danny Backman, because Danny Backman, I think, is a good guy, good soul, good spirit, good heart. But again, I don't want to go there about what on the pitch, right? But if you're giving Daniel Backman 5 years, Tom Cleverley, you've got to give that man at least 3-year deal. Pay the man. Make a wise investment. Just like we talked about in a Banqua, make a wise investment. I know money is a problem at Watford. I know that. We all know that as football supporters of this club that we love. But it's about making the wise investment in those circumstances. You know that your money situation is difficult at that club that we love, at this club we love. You know that. So make smart, wise investments given your situation. You don't throw five years on. Anyway, you get where I'm going with that. You understand where I'm going with that. We all understand the point that's being made here, right? So bottom line here is Klebs needs to be re-upped. Give him a 3-year contract. Give him a 3-year deal as a manager here, right? And see what he can do. Let him build. We need continuity. Let the man build. The problem is that this owner doesn't let these managers build anything, and he gets rid of them. Short term, he thinks that's a good fix. Long term, it's not. Long term, it's not. And then he gets rid of another manager. And remember, we saw what happened that season, just a couple of seasons ago, when we had, I forget who was it Ranieri? I forget who it was. We had one manager, then we had Slaven Bilic, then we had Chris Wilder. How is that continuity? Now, Bilic was decent as a manager, I thought, and Chris Wilder I thought was decent, but we didn't have a great squad then, and we don't have a great squad now. But Tom Cleverley is getting the most out of this squad that we have, that's thin and so-so. And we've got some emerging players now. We've got some young players now. We've got young players who are playing now. I know Barr's been out for several weeks, but he might even be back in the next month or so. Who knows? By the time we get to April, we might have Barr back. And that's something that Tom Cleverley's basically been saying the last few weeks, that Barr isn't far away from returning to the fold. We need to build continuity. Stick with Tom Cleverley and give him something. Give him a contract and then back him in the summer. You have to back him in the summer. You can't have any aspirations to go into the Premier League or compete for playoffs if you're not building something. You have to build. Field of Dreams. If you build it, he will come. Or in this case, if you build it, we will come. We will all. I mean, we support this club through thick and thin anyhow. But come on, man. Support this man. You see what's going on. Support the man. Support the man. Please support this man. Support this man. Support this man. Tom Cleverley has done a great job here at Watford. Yes, there have been some moments where we have had some rocky patches, but that happens in any football season. And it happens at any club. Look at Man City. You know, they're not going to probably win anything. I mean, they're probably not going to win anything this season. For the first time in forever. I don't see them sacking Pep Guardiola anytime soon. They just gave him a contract, so they're not going to do that. But Tom Cleverley has to be re-signed. And he will be, I think. It's about I hope. But how many years is he going to get? One? Because if he gets only one more season, that tells me a lot about Gino. If he gets 2 or 3 years, then that's something different. You want to give stability to your first team, and you want the players who are playing for you to know, okay, this is the head coach. He's not going to be out of here in 5 minutes. He's going to be around for another couple of seasons or 3. He might be here for a season or 3. Right. We better knuckle down and play for him. And you see the joy with these players. They love playing for him. Some of these players were his teammates just 2 or 3 seasons ago. No reason to ditch this now. The players love him. The fans love him. The owner doesn't. But the owner has to listen to what we're saying. And I can hear someone saying now, well, the owner doesn't have to listen. I understand that. He doesn't have to in that way. But he really does have to. You cannot afford to be tone deaf with the Watford fan base. You cannot afford to be. Because this fan base now is as united as it has been in a number of years. There was a lot of dissections and differences and divisions amongst the fan base a few short seasons ago. But I think you have most of the fan base, the vast majority of it, on board with what Clevs is doing. There'll always be an outlier. There'll always be 1 or 2 outliers who will say, oh, let's get rid of Clevs. Ugh. There were some of them this season, earlier in this very season that you and I are sitting in, who sat there and said, oh, Tom Cleverley's got to go. They don't know what they've done. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're trolls or people who just don't watch football and don't watch this club, or who aren't actually Watford fans, but they're saying that they are Watford fans. And if they are Watford fans, then they really haven't been watching the games. Because Tom Cleverley has been very good for us. And he's bringing the kinds of things to these games, the attitude and the presence to these games that is necessary. He's bringing the advice. He's bringing his know-how. He's bringing his nous. And I think he's the right man for this club, the right man for the right club at the right time. And for goodness sakes, man, you see the atmosphere of the place, and Brown Electrons has just weighed in on this too. Brown says the feel-good factor is back at the club. Absolutely. You see the atmosphere around the place. You know, you feel the atmosphere around the place. I'm here in California, and you can feel it. Back on Sunday, earlier this week, beginning of the week, That game against that lot up the road, that crowd has been as loud as it has ever been. You even had the Sir Elton John stand getting into it. How often does that happen? I've been to the Vic and sat in the Sir Elton John. It's as quiet as a mouse, right? You had the Sir Elton getting into it. You had the GT getting into it. Those two stands that are they are generally sedate. That's for people who don't like to sing and don't like to get. And I'm not knocking it because it's fine. You sit where you sit, and I don't mind sitting in the Sir Elton John. I actually like it, quite frankly. The Rookery is where it's at now. I've never actually sat in that Rookery, which I will do the next time around that I get out there. But all four corners of that ground were great. And that ain't happened at the Vic for a long, long time. Now, listen, those of you who go to the Vic more often than I do can probably attest to that or feel free to disagree. But generally, like Brown Electrons has just stated in the YouTube comments, the feel-good factor is back at the club. When around this men's first team, around the youth cup situation with the youth team, that men's team has been terrific. They're now in the youth cup semifinals, if I'm not mistaken. They just beat Southampton the other day. I mean, come on. I mean, this is the advertisement for why you don't disrupt continuity. And these things filter down. And I know that Tom Cleverley is no longer the head coach of those under 18s. But the bottom line is he used to be the head coach of them. Right? And now they're in the Youth Cup semis, I think it is now. Haven't beaten Spurs and then beaten the Saints, who, by the way, their men's first team is going down, as you know. That's going to happen in the Premier League. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that these things filter down. And so you need that continuity. And I like what's happening at Watford with what's happening on the pitch and the mindset, right? They let us into the dressing room in that video that we saw after we beat that lot up the road. And you saw the way that Tom Cleverley interacts with them players after they ended that game. I thought that was really good. And I really think it's very important to keep this atmosphere going. And Ryan Dabdoob says this. If it was like that every week at the Vic, fans would be the 12th man. Yeah, we would be. We would be the 12th man. We got into it, I think. A lot of it was due to the fact that we were playing that a lot up the road. Because there's an extra something about playing that lot. And the other part, and plus they're the bottom of the table, I think. Although I think they won today, for God's sakes. But the bottom line is that we need to have that energy all the time. That's what we need. And Luton did win. They did win. That's the first win they've had, I think, since December. They're in the bottom three still, though. Derby County are rock bottom, having lost 3 in a row. Plymouth drew for the second consecutive game, so they are still on 30 points. Oh, they're still in second from bottom. And Luton are third from bottom, but 2 points off. And really 3 points, I'd say 3 points off because they are way behind on goal difference from Hull City. Hull City lost today. They're in 21st place on 33. Luton, 22nd place, below the dotted line on 31. That was a really important win for that lot. So they bounced back after we beat them, and they won a game today against Portsmouth, which I'm very surprised that they beat Portsmouth. Portsmouth have been going very, very well of late, so that's a very important win for that trash up the street. But anyway, that's the way that goes. But I do think that we have a good factor. The club is, the men's first team's performing again. The fans are very receptive. You've got the Youth Cup start doing, the youth doing well. The academy players doing well. The Watford women, I think, have been very good this season. They've progressed well in the league. The Renee Hecht has done a great job there of them. Former Watford player. It's interesting. You've got 2 ex-Watford players, head coaches of the 2 professional teams. I think that's really significant. I don't know that we've ever had that before. Renee Hector used to play for Watford just a few years ago. In fact, she was on the team that got Watford promoted that year, a few short years ago from the Championship into whatever division it is above that. I forget what their division is. Premier League. No. They got promoted from the Southern Division into the Championship, I think it was. And Renee Hector was part of that team. That was only 2 or 3 years ago. Helen Ward's last season. So it's great to see her there, and then her there doing a job with the Watford women. And then you've got the Watford men and Tom Cleverley, who 2 or 3 seasons ago was at Watford as a player, and now he's managing and head coaching them. So, the Watford men. So that's really great. I'm going to read out some more of your comments now, and we'll call it a day here on YouTube as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the Orns WFC YouTube channel here on YouTube. Of course, on X, you can follow at Orns WFC, and on Instagram, also at Orns WFC, the podcast, as well on both Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And here we go. Matt says the following: Omar, I saw a YouTube video from the game last weekend, and the Watford fans were already singing loud and proud, even while walking down to the ground. This is really good. That's really good energy there. And Matt, thank you for pointing this out. That was something you saw on YouTube. Good to know. That was really good. If Watford can keep doing that, the fan base can be. See, again, the fan base isn't going to automatically do all of this. I think in some ways it will. Against Luton, there's very little motivation needed. Oh, I can't believe I mentioned their name. I did mention their name several times. But against That'll up the road, there's no motivation, right? And also with our league table position, which at that point I think was 9th or 10th, not really a lot of motivation. But that pride in being a Watford supporter, that pride in knowing that you've got a good manager, in knowing that you've got some players who can improve, but there's a blueprint there, in knowing that we're maybe 3 or 4 players away from really being very dangerous in this league, right? I think we're still about 3, maybe even 4 players away from being dangerous in this league. But what we have in this squad is promising, even though thin. It is promising. A banquet, promising. We can see what's going on. Larousse, potential. We can see what's going on. The likes of Dumbia, very promising. Quadro Bar, terrific. Vata, very promising and very good so far as well. So these are areas of the pitch where there's a lot of great potential and promise. And I think we're still about 3, maybe 4 players away. But we can build what we've got now, even on a cash-strapped budget. We can build what we've got right now and build it well. And so that pride is back, as Brown Electron said earlier. That pride is really back at the club again, where it was a dog's dinner around here, wasn't it, for a few years? And I know there have been other seasons where it's been bad way back. I know. I'm old enough to remember some of them, a lot of them seasons. But it was, coming to the Vic, even last season, was not great. It's not great, mate. And put it this way, the atmosphere around the place wasn't pleasant. Be fair. It wasn't pleasant. So for when you got the Sir Elton getting into it, and you got the GT stand getting into it, and you got, as Matt said, Watford fans coming through the town centre singing, and Ryan Dabdoob said this. Ryan said this too. Omar, the Watford fans were even singing in the town centre. Yeah, I don't remember seeing that a lot. The only times I remember seeing that was when Watford got promoted, both this time around back in 2021 and previous to that. And you'd have Watford fans jumping in the fountain in the town centre. You remember them. And all singing and all the rest of it. That's the only time I remember it. But bottom line is, yeah, normally, it's a very sedate fan base at these games. Now, usually at home. The home fans are usually quite quiet anyway, right? Except if you go to places like Liverpool, Newcastle, City, the Etihad there, and possibly, I'd say Arsenal to a degree. But there's only maybe 4 or 5 teams whose fan bases make a lot of noise at home, right? We're not one of them, right? Generally speaking, it's always the Liverpools of the world. I don't even think Man United make that much noise at home. Liverpool do, City do, Newcastle definitely do. And maybe Arsenal, but the bottom line is there's only a few clubs in England who, when you go to their home mat, when you go as a visiting supporter, you're going to hear a lot of home fans talking. and chirping, no matter what. When you come to our ground, the home fan base, and we got the Rookery's really good at this, but generally speaking, we don't make a lot of noise at home. There's a lot of energy. We have a lot of noise at times, but we don't make that consistent. But that's true of any club in the Championship, right, for the most part, and many in the Premier League. Because, the home fans are sitting there, sometimes sitting on their hands with some of these games and these performances. And it's always the away club fans that make more noise, right? You can always predict what the chants are going to be the first 10 minutes of the game. Shall we sing a song for you? Shall we sing a song for you? You can predict, right? Those are the chants you're going to hear. Is this a library? Is this a library? You get the idea, right? That's what you're going to hear when you're the home fan, right? At your ground. That's just the way it is. But 100%, there is a different energy about the Vic now. And certainly that game on Sunday, different energy. Now, we play Millwall next. We will see what kind of energy there is there. Millwall, of course, a team that nobody likes, as the fan base of theirs adoringly says, or affectionately says, I should say. Nobody likes Millwall, and they don't care. Literally, that's their chant. We got Millwall next week. It's an early afternoon kickoff again, so I probably will not be able to do a YouTube live after the game because it's very early in the morning here, and I really have to be very quiet, and that would not be fun. So it's tough enough on X when I have to basically whisper, but I will try to do a later YouTube, but it will come a bit later on. It might be at least an hour or so after, if not more, after the end of the game. So that's something to just be aware of. That's a 12:30 kickoff. That's an early afternoon kickoff next Saturday. Watford against Millwall. And you can see why that's an early afternoon kickoff, because Millwall are just a bunch of thugs. At least their fan base is just ridiculous. Nobody likes that lot. And Millwall and Crystal Palace played there in the FA Cup, and that got a little bit testy as well. Certainly there was an issue there for one of the Palace players, but look, that's not my business, not my concern, really. But the bottom line is we play Millwall next. What's the fan base going to be like? And for a team, for a game against that lot up the road that was at high noon, that was the kickoff at high noon on a Sunday. The fan base, our fan base was well into that game, well into it, even before like Brown and Ryan had said, even before the game. And Matt had said this, actually, I'm sorry. Matt had, even before the game, this lot where we were up for it, right? Way before the game. We weren't even at the Vic and we were singing. What's it going to be like early afternoon kickoff Saturday against Millwall? Millwall are in the same boat we're in. They're a couple of places behind us in the table, right? We beat them this season to start the season, a 3-2 win. Remember that game? First game of the season. And Millwall are in 12th place. They've got a game more to play. I think they won their last game. They're on 45 points. 4 points behind us. Very important game. Very important game. I think this game was a good one today for us. We're still in the mix, firmly in the mix. We're only 3 points off West Brom, albeit the goal difference is an issue. And we're only 4 points off of 5th place Coventry. Coventry have going under Frank Lampard. Coventry are looking really strong. They've won 4 in a row. And that's the kind of thing Watford are going to need to do here over these next few games. This run of games they've got now is a lot easier than it was. They played a load of teams that were very difficult to deal with. They played against Middlesbrough and won. They played against Sunderland, got a draw, should have won. They played against Leeds, they got spanked. They played against the likes of Sheffield United earlier on in the calendar, and they got beat there at home. Tough game. That's where the injury to Backman happened at the end of the game. We've played a lot of these teams. We played Burnley. We've got to play Burnley again at home. But we played Burnley. We've gone through a load of teams that are difficult to deal with. West Brom is on the horizon for us soon as well. But look, we've got a stretch of games. We've got 2 consecutive games at home. one of them against Millwall, and the next one against Swansea. So these are games where Watford need to be getting points, need to be winning the games. Home games, need to be winning the games. And if Watford can do that, then we're in the mix again. We're in the mix. In the mix. Those two games, Watford against Millwall and Watford against Swansea, come in a 5-day stretch. So we play at Saturday early afternoon kickoff, and then we got a midweek Wednesday affair on the 12th of March against Swansea. So Watford need to be winning both of them games. I know we can't look too far ahead, but Watford need to be winning them games. Then we got Oxford the weekend after that, which would be the Saturday, then the 15th of March. So 3 games in a week. Watford have 3 games in 8 days, starting next Saturday. So those 3 games, if Watford can get at least 7 points out of them 3 games, or get 9 points total out of 9, that's going to really tell a good, strong story about how Watford finish this business end of the season. The business end of the season will be very, very big for Watford if we can get those 3 games. 1 game at a time. Clean sheet is going to be very important in these games, and Watford kept one for a 3rd straight game for the first time, as Matt says, since April and May of 2021. That is going to be it for this edition of the Orns post-match. It is terrific to have you here. Ryan said, Omar KFC I was referring to earlier, only do chicken in buckets. Okay. Thanks for that, Ryan. I don't even eat this stuff, so I honestly don't know what the devil goes on with KFC, but thanks, Ryan, for telling us about that as well. That's exactly where the referee probably is right now, enjoying his Sunday evening dinner. But that is it for this edition of the Orns Watford FC post-match on YouTube. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard. Thank you so very much indeed. Thank you to all of you who commented, all of you watching live, and those of you who will watch afterwards later on. Thank you so very much for that. The final score was Stoke City 0, Watford 0. That is from the Bet365 today, where Watford extended their unbeaten run to 3 games now and 3 clean sheets. That is very good indeed. The standout player, the Orns man of the match, James Abankwah. He was excellent today. He was all over the pitch in a game that was otherwise forgettable. Thank you, and Ryan, you too have a great weekend as well. And to everyone watching here on Orns WFC, please subscribe to the Orns WFC YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. And again, kind comments from you, Matt. Thank you. Thank you, Omar, he says, for another great chat about the team we love. Indeed, Matt. Take care of yourself. Take care, everyone. And until next Saturday against Millwall, where I might do a YouTube live, but later on in the day, take care, be well, and have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy.